Okay, good evening everyone. Well, that's a bit more powerful than when we were last time, and we've actually got 2 mics this time, so hopefully Q&A will be a little bit more efficient and come out on the camera better. So
we want a recount.
Okay, I think most people have sat down, a few more at the bar, that's fine, we'll get started. First of all, just want to obviously welcome everyone here. It's amazing to see so many of you here. We had no idea how many people would turn up, we never do, but as always, the Pompey fan base never lets us down, and we really appreciate every one of you here, and hopefully we're going to get around and catch up with you. It's really appreciated you taking your time out to come here today, and hopefully it's worth it. You've got a great Q&A to go on later. Unfortunately, Sophie quite can't be here. If any of you spoke to her after game yesterday, she's really poorly, so she can't be here. But we've still got Brooke, Jay, and Molly. So plenty to talk about, plenty of questions. I'm sure you've got them all prepared. Jay's ready to go, aren't you? We're ready to go. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'll do just a quick supports club update. Then I'm going to hand over to Molly, who's agreed to come along tonight and give us a bit of an input on the under 23 side. So it's a bit of a thing that we're going to do at the supports meetings. We're going to have guest speakers. So yeah, Molly's going to be our first one. So thank you for agreeing to do that, Molly. It's great to see so many familiar faces here. Like some of you, we've been going to the women's games for about 7 years now, and there's some really familiar faces. Some of you who've stood on the terraces at hundreds of women's games together, and it's great to see you all, and some new faces as well. Some of you I don't recognise from matches. I'm sure you're there, but we don't see everybody. But yeah, please come and introduce yourselves later on. So a bit of a supports club update then. Since the launch, we've been completely blown away by quite how much the supports club has grown in the time it has. We had a rough idea of what we wanted, and we've exceeded that tenfold easily. The amount of backing and support we get from members is absolutely incredible. People come up to us every game saying nice things, giving their ideas, which we're more than happy to hear your ideas and suggestions. Currently we have about 160 members, which is absolutely incredible. We never imagined we'd have that many members when we formed in the summer. The backing you've given us and the faith you give us has enabled us to achieve some pretty special things in our first sort of 6 months. First of all, we've been able to have the trophies made for the players to commemorate their appearance milestones. The latest one we presented yesterday to Daisy McLachlan. She hit her 50 appearances. She's done a couple of stints at the club, so yeah, she hit 50 yesterday, and the look on her face, she wasn't expecting it at all. So when we pulled her aside when she was walking off the pitch, the look on her face was just of sheer delight. It was really nice, and it really makes us feel like that's the right thing to do, and as a supporters group, we want to be able to do that. We were also featured in the Football Supporters Association website before Christmas. They were really impressed with the progress we've made in our first 6 months of founding, and they approached us to do an article on us so it can be an inspiration to other supporters groups on what you can achieve, even in the early days when you don't really know what you're doing and you're trying to find your feet. They've commented several times that the things we've achieved in the Pompey Women Supporters Club, it normally takes supporters groups anywhere between 2 to 5 years to do what we've done in the first 6 months. We obviously had no idea to that. We had no levels or litmus tests or to-do lists. But to have that from the FSA was a real boost to us to know that we're going in the right direction, and we've got a solid foundation to build on over the next few years. One of our biggest achievements that every single person in this room can share is our sponsorship arrangement that we've established with Pompey in the community. You might have seen that on our website. So basically what we've done is we've sponsored them, and we've purchased several pop-up substitute benches for the girls' youth teams. Now, a huge thank you first of all goes to Brad, who put in a lot of work over a number of months. You wouldn't believe how many emails and paperwork it takes to link up with Pompey in the community, but we managed to get it over the line. It was a significant financial investment for the supporters club, our biggest by a long way that we've done so far. But we felt it was in line with the objectives of the sports club, and PITC were absolutely delighted to be receiving such a generous gift, and it really felt good, and everybody who's a member contributed towards that, and we are very, very grateful to be able to give something back in such our early days. One of the age groups who received these benches was the under 14 girls team. We like to think that had an impact because on Saturday they made the long trip away to Exeter City in a title deciding match. Pompey only needing a draw or a victory to win the league, Exeter needed a win. Pompey got the 1-1 draw they needed and they won the Junior Premier League in their debut season, which is an incredible achievement. So huge congratulations to the girls, and we've actually got two of them here. There's Ellie and Abby over on the far side who are going to kill me for pointing them out. But congratulations girls, it was a hard-fought season with some very good teams at that level. Big jump up, they were in the Hampshire Girls League, big jump up to the JPL, and to win it in the debut season is a massive achievement. So to see them sitting on the substitute benches that we provided gives us a big sense of pride, and we want to share that with all of you, and thank you all for contributing to that, because it really does mean a lot to PWSC. That along with, there's other, so obviously the under 14s won their league quite quickly, but there's other age groups who are also at the top challenging for league titles, so hopefully in the next meeting we can update you on their progress. And we've also, I've been speaking to the head of the girls programme, Kirsty, and hopefully we're going to get her as a guest speaker at one of the future events as well. Because I think it would be, I mean, my daughter's in the programme, so obviously I know all about it, but I think a lot of supporters wouldn't know anything about our youth structure and how it works. And it is very, very interesting. And they achieve a lot in that way, punching above its weight actually. So yeah, we're going to try and get Kirsty on in a future meeting to go through that with you. It's certainly been a challenging season on the pitch for the first team as they look to find their feet in the championship. But one thing that has been amazing, and it's to no surprise at all, it's the level of support and commitment from our members in following the team up and down the country. Win, lose or draw, 35 or 350 miles away, it hasn't mattered. Our supporters have travelled, and those who made the recent trip to Newcastle, and there's several of you here tonight, Tracy's here as well somewhere, there she is. Those of you who made that trip to Newcastle, that is an outstanding level of commitment. Not a lot of teams have hardly any supporters. We see that at Wesley Park. I mean, how many supporters do most teams have? A few. I mean, Newcastle are ridiculously supported, aren't they? But other than that, very few teams bring that many. And it's always a sense of pride when I see the photos of our members at away games, and I know that the team really, really appreciate the support at those games. Yesterday, the performance on the pitch from the team, I think you'll all agree, was one that we can really get behind. The amount of guts and commitment they showed to plug away against a team with a ridiculously bigger budget than us. And even their keeper turned to us at the end of the game and commented, "You really had us on the ropes today." They knew it. And that's the sort of performance that I think we all agree that we can get behind. And hopefully, if the team carry on like that, they can start getting those points on the board to keep us in the division. Before I hand over to Molly, I just want to take a moment to highlight what's going to happen this summer with the Supporters Club. During the summer months, we're going to host our very first AGM. So the AGM agenda items are going to include potential changes to the committee members, if any of us are stepping down. I haven't asked that question yet to them, but if any of us are stepping down, then there'll be places available, and I'm going to send more information on that nearer the time. We're also going to start sending out emails about renewing memberships for next year. So our membership scheme runs from the 1st of August, and your memberships expire on the 31st of July and then we send emails out in July to renew for next year. We anticipate the membership fee is going to remain at £10, so we don't see any reason to increase that, and I don't think we will. But the funds raised from the full memberships is a really critical tool to us. If we want to achieve the goals as a sports club, we need our full members. To have so many this year has been very humbling for us as a committee, and we felt the pressure to do something with that, and we're proud of what we've done. You know, such as the trophies, you know, put money towards it. Obviously the trophies, the member packs and the sponsorships for the youth team, and we want to continue to build on that next year. Now, I wouldn't want anyone to put money if they are financially unable to do so. I would never ever ask you to do that. But what I'd like you to consider when you do get that in your email is how important that money is and how it plays a massive impact in things like PWSC and building the supporters club to what we want it to be. We don't want it just to be a name on a website and a flag at a match. We want it to be much more than that, and we want it to have a positive impact on the community through PWSC and doing our bit for the team as well. Together we can do this, so yeah, when you get those emails, please consider renewing, because every member really, really helps towards that. So just want to hand over to Molly then, just mention that Chris has got a few programmes. So Chris is over there, so he's got a few programmes available if you've got any missing for your collection, so see him if you want to do that. So I won't keep you anymore, you don't want to listen to me waffling anymore. I'm going to hand over to Molly, and she's going to do her input on the under-23s.
Hello, my name is Molly, if those don't know me. So I'm the head coach of the under-23s. This is my third season with them. It's a very different season this season. We've got a very young squad this season, but we're doing really well actually. We play in the Southwest National League, currently sitting second behind Bournemouth, who are flying. They fly every year against us. They've kept their team the same, I think, for every season I've been here, and we've changed ours constantly, so it's always a challenge, but we still compete, and we're finishing second potentially is going to be an achievement for the girls in their first year together. We're still in some cup competitions as well, opportunity to play one on Wednesday for those who may have seen as well, against Portchester. We recently played in the semi-final against Stockport in the National League, unfortunately lost 3-1 in that one, but again, massive achievement to get to a semi-final, so some of the girls have never reached there before. Obviously I have, but I would love to have gone to the final, but it's what it is. But for some of those girls, they've had an experience of a lifetime. I think the parents will say it as well. The weekend was fantastic, going up together, being able to spend the night together in Stockport, and the girls all bonding was fantastic. And yes, we didn't achieve the final, but for them it's experience and a lot for them. So yeah, we're doing really well in the league so far. Got a few games left, and then we're looking to get some more friendlies in, and they're changing our league slightly to get some more fixtures. So the top 4 in our league will then go and play against the top 4 in the Central Division, which we found out the other day, which is great. So we get to go play some other teams like Ipswich, MK Dons, Billericay at the moment, which will be fantastic for the girls.
So Molly, how I get the mic, then I can.
So Molly, we'll have a bit of to and fro on the mic.
That's fine.
So we've had a few, as I said to you before, we've had a few people ask questions to us over the years about the under-23s that I can't answer. So perhaps I can prompt you with some of the questions we get commonly asked. So first of all, how do you recruit your players? Where do you get them from?
So we've done trials every year for them. Same again this year. We did a massive trial at the end of June, I think it was, where we invited a load of girls down for an evening session to put them all together and just see them play. We changed the squad massively this season. I think we've only kept 5 from last season, so we went a lot younger this year, to see how the girls would progress, and we just did it that way.
And is that working? What's the average turnover? So do you lose most of your squad every year, or do you retain half, or what's the sort of turnover?
So this year I only kept 5 from last year, so we turned over quite a lot. That was mainly because a lot of the older ones wanted to go play senior football, so we pushed them on to the next level. Obviously we wish it was the first team, but it's not always possible. So a lot of them have gone to Moneyfields or Portchester to push on for more. So previous years we've kept more, because they were more older, and it was like this year when we got younger, so yeah, we lost quite a few this year.
So how does it work for girls such as Abby and Eddie, who are working their way through the PWSC youth team, if they have aspirations to join your team? At the moment there's a bit of a gap, isn't there, between the end of the PWSC youth teams, which I think end at under 16, and you're an under 23 side. So how does that work? Do you ever get any girls from the youth teams join, and is there a plan to sort of bridge that gap in the future?
So we've had a few in the past come from the PWSC across, and there's a few girls in my squad now who are still at college in the PWSC. There is like a small link, it's not massive, but I think we are going to hopefully work with Kirsty to be able to bridge that a lot more, because it'd be nice for them to finish under 16s and then be able to come up somehow, but yeah, it's just not there at the moment, but hopefully in time it will be.
And what are some of the challenges you have with the youth girls? Because we're noticing our girls are sort of the 13, 14 age, and some of them are definitely starting to drift in the interest a little bit. It's all pretty cool when you're younger, running around, but now there's other distractions and they start to fade off. And I'm guessing when you get some of your younger players, perhaps when they were younger they had dreams of playing full professional at big clubs. That's not probably going to happen for them, but they can still play at a good level. So is that a challenge you have with trying to keep the girls interested, or are all the girls in your squad like generally like desperate to still play football?
Yeah, I would say they're all very desperate to play football. I think you probably asked them over there massively, some of the parents over there, but they all want to be here, they all want to play football, they want to push on and achieve a dream of being a full-time professional footballer, and if they can, they will keep going. We haven't had any issues where they've stopped interested at all. They've wanted to keep pushing and pushing on, definitely.
And how do you cope though if you, and this has happened quite a few times where you've had players who've done very well in your team, and then Jay comes sniffing and poaches them for his matches. How do you cope with that? Because I'd imagine like you have perhaps a couple of star players and then suddenly they're off helping Jay in competition. So how does that work as a dynamic within the team? Because that's quite unique, isn't it?
I think it's a bit of a mixture. It's difficult sometimes because you're like, oh, actually I kind of would prefer them to play with us, but actually it's an amazing opportunity to get the chance to go up to the first team. You can only take Leah, for example, this season with the goalkeeper situation. How amazing it's been for her to go up and experience the first team. Yes, she might not have played or anything, but she's experienced that, and she brought that experience down to the girls, and they've all fed off of that and learned stuff off her. So yes, it is difficult because you have to adapt and change things, but ultimately it's a great experience, and ultimately that's what I want the girls to go and achieve. They need to get into first team, whether it's here or somewhere else.
So ultimately for the under-23 team, what's the mission statement for you? What is it? Just pure development? Is it getting players into the Pompey Women first team? Because some of our players leave, they go to the likes of Moneyfields and Portchester. So what is that the aim of the programme, to feed other local clubs, or is it purely our first team?
So I always said when I first came in, I'd love to get players into Jay's first team squad, and the first 2 seasons I've done that, and again this season 1 has gone up. So ultimately, yeah, that's the aim. But to see them all progress to other first teams, I think I got, sounds really bad, but a little bit sad, but I've got a notes page on my phone with how many players have moved on. There's about 20 players that have gone on to senior football from my setup, and for me that's my job, is to develop these players to go be ready to go play senior football. And it's amazing to see. Yes, there are rival clubs in a way, but it's still an amazing achievement for them.
So the women's game has grown considerably over the last few years, and we can see that in visual terms. We've obviously with Pompey, we were going to the Championship. We're a bit more of a bigger deal now than we were in the National League. How has the growth of women's football affected development football and reserve team football? Has it seen similar growth, or are you still struggling with things like getting pitches? Because we came to see you on a school 3G in Borden a while back. It's fine, it's a fine facility, isn't it? But nowhere for supporters. I mean, we were sort of stuck in at the edge trying to not get away with the line though. But do you still have those sort of challenges, or has it moved on a lot in recent years?
So I'd say it's moved on a bit. We were just talking about a minute ago. I've now got obviously our home ground in the John Jenkins being ours for the 23s, so we know exactly where we're training, exactly where we're playing. So it's a lot nicer than travelling to here, there and everywhere like I did last season. I think it has grown, but there has been, you can see it, there was a thing on Twitter the other day where you can see the amount of reserve teams that have dropped out from every single league. You can take our league for example, we've only got 6 teams in ours now. We started off at 9 last season, 10 I think it was coaching, we're now down to 6. I think it is heading in the right direction, but there's still a lot of work I think to be done for the reserve section, because it's not just our league that's decreased, but it's a lot of the leagues have just not got enough teams in there.
So last question then. So we did have a question submitted in advance by a member who couldn't be here tonight, and I think this question probably will need to be asked back to Jay because they're on a different angle. But from your point of view, if people don't know in this room that the FA are talking about introducing B teams into tiers 4 and below, which nobody wants that to happen, but they don't care, they're doing it anyway. Is that going to affect, do you believe, in your professional status, is that going to affect development teams, because bigger teams are going to hold on to players because they need dev teams? So, we're thinking about the likes of Emily Pittman. Would they release her, or do they just keep her in the devs for the first? Is that going to be an issue, do you think, for the future of development football? I
think it could be, yeah. I don't think anybody wants what's going to happen. But like you said, I don't think the FA care one bit at all. So yeah, I do think it might affect massively on us. I don't know how it will look for us at all. But I like to hope that teams won't hold on to their players and they will give them the chance to play. But yeah, I don't think that's going to happen too often.
In your professional opinion as a coach, you've got a young player. Do they stay at Chelsea B, knowing that they're never going to play first team football? Do they stay at Chelsea B in Tier 4, or do they play their football, or do they go to like some money fields and play Tier 4? What would be your advice to a player?
I would go play. I've said this I take it from when I used to play as well. I didn't enjoy sitting on the bench all the time. Like you enjoy the experiences at these big clubs. So I used to play for Chelsea, so being a big club was amazing, but it got to a point where I was just not playing. And you're never going to learn, develop and push on if you don't play football. So yeah, I would recommend definitely going to play football somewhere, 100%.
Brilliant. Well, Molly, thank you so much for joining us tonight. So give Molly a round of applause.
Hello everyone, so a quick introduction of the panel, who as you know, don't really need introducing, but we have Jay, head of the first team coach, we have Brooke Chaplen, head of women's football, and Molly Small, under 23 head coach. Now I do have some prepared questions that we received from email, which I'll ask first, then we'll open it up to the floor. So the first question is to Brooke. The Women's Professional League Limited has been floating the idea of a closed league. Is the club in favour of this? And if so, what does it consider the benefits?
Is the club in benefit of this?
In favour of it. What benefits are there?
We haven't actually discussed with ownership the closed league because it hasn't been spoken at any length. Officially at any meetings we've been at. Obviously we discuss competition structure regularly and how we can grow the game, and different ideas are always thrown about. Do we mirror what they're doing in America, whereby you make different types of jeopardy and you remove relegation, but you have playoffs? Lots of different ideas are thrown around. That has been mentioned but not officially put forward to us as stakeholders within the league. I think it has pros and cons. Look, for European football, it goes against a lot of the pyramid structure that we're all used to and the tradition of football in this country. But I think whilst women's football is at its early stages and clubs are being asked to invest a lot of money ahead of revenue, it does come with a little bit of security, whereby you know you're not going to invest a lot of money to get into a league to then be relegated back to a grassroots league for those in the Championship specifically. Obviously going from WSL to Championship there is a drop, but it's not the cliff edge that is from Tier 2 to Tier 3. So say for example Portsmouth Football Club invested in facilities, built a pitch for training or matches, and then found themselves back in Tier 3 with no real licence requirements to meet as we have in Tier 2 and Tier 1. Obviously from an ownership point of view and investment point of view, that's a security that they can then know, well, we'll be building for years and years without just falling out of the league. And I think whilst it's in this infant part of its transition, it's a little bit like a start-up company, it might be beneficial or appealing to some of the clubs that are trying to get on their way and start their journey.
Okay, thank you. This is to all of the panel. The FA is considering, and we did touch on it earlier, FA is considering allowing B teams of the women's WSL Championship to compete in the lower tiers of the women's game. How do we think this will impact the club? To any of you?
So my initial thoughts on this, again, I think all clubs throughout Tier 1 and 2 will have a really different opinion. For the top clubs whose reserves team, under 21 PGA teams can't find competitive fixtures, it obviously is really appealing to them. From our point of view, that would mean our reserve team play 36 fixtures a season, I think it is, in Tier 4 and 5, because the amount of teams in the league in comparison to our first team that have 22. So it just seems a little bit And even from a structure point of view, really we want to be pushing the level of games, the amount of games higher up the pyramid, so that we can develop a league that's consistent, where we're at home regularly, we can build a fan base which has momentum through the year, because for the teams outside of the top four of the WSL, I think everyone feels a little bit like it's stop-start. Sometimes we're not at home for like 6, 7, 8 weeks, depending on when an international break and your home fixture's full. So for me, there needs to be a bigger focus on how do we increase the amount of games higher up than for the development teams lower down.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the other thing is the stockpiling of talent. If, for example, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, Man City had a big team in Tier 3, Tier 4, then players could stay there for 18, 19, 20. And I get it from a senior football point of view, these young players would then be exposed to senior football and playing against, for example, a Moneyfield, a Bournemouth, a Swindon. However, I think would it not be more vital that they find their way into like Molly alluded to earlier, players like April Hill and like Sky Granger are now playing for Portchester and Moneyfields, and they're getting their senior football at senior teams, so it then won't hinder the grassroots teams or the semi-professional teams that are wanting to push forth. They would then lose out on the best talent.
Okay, thank you. Jay, while you've got the microphone, do any of our loan players have recall clauses, or are they here for the rest of the season?
No, they don't, no.
So one of the goalkeepers does, but everyone else is here for the rest of the season. That's good news. Brooke, what is the club doing to advertise the women's matches?
Specifically,
I think just we're raising awareness amongst the general supporters group.
So this year we've obviously had our first set of staff who are solely dedicated to the women's marketing and sales of the women's tickets. There's been a few different avenues that we've tried to follow. I think the biggest one for us has been really connecting in with PITC. They have incredible links to schools, local schools, and also to grassroots teams around the city. And it takes time to build those relationships, but we're really trying to get players and the club into places that we've probably not been able to do so much in the past, where we haven't had the resource. We also now have a content exec that is again solely working on the women's platforms. We're learning all the time from the league and the data that they produce and what might work for the men's team. There's a really different strategy required for the women, so this year we've tried to start along the TikToks, because for women's sport we're advised that that's where our fan bases are, the ages that are following the sport, those are the platforms that they're on, whereas for the men that's maybe not so much the case. So yeah, we're always trying to develop content that we can then market. A few different things, but they're still really in their infancy, and we're still trying really hard to build those relationships so that as we move forward, it's not where it is now, and we have people in schools and out at clubs week in, week out, and kind of engagements on our platforms that are working harder than what they are now.
Okay, thank you. I've got a couple of questions regarding the under-23s. I think with Molly being here, there was a bit more interest on that. A media update on under-23s. Some questions were, can anything be done to develop the exposure of how they're getting on? Yeah,
I think obviously we want to develop a pathway, not just the 23s, a pathway that we can promote on social media. But the reality at the moment is that we're literally just finding our feet as a first team. We would love to have the resource to create content for under 23s team, 16s, 14s, 12s, so that we can keep everyone updated on everything that's happening at the club. But the reality is, with one person coming in to a team in Tier 2, there's a lot of work there just for the first team that at the moment we're still not really where we want to be, and we're still working really hard to get to where we need to be to try and make the first team sustainable first and foremost. From ticket sales, season ticket sales, sponsorship, like all those platforms have to work well for us to generate revenue to support the first team, which ultimately then paves the way for the rest of the pathway. So it's obviously a future aim of ours, but right now we're still very early on in trying to get the first team stuff right.
Okay, thank you. Next year, obviously, we don't know what division we'll be in yet. Hopefully, still be in the championship. However, if we do go down, will that have any impact on the under-23s?
We haven't actually looked at this specifically. I've started arranging meetings for the next couple of months to review what the pathway looks like next year, if we stay in Tier 2 or if we go down to Tier 3. It's going to be a really late call because obviously it all depends on what happens come the end of April. We will map out a few options, and then when we get to the end of the season and we know like what the likelihood is of us, we'll review what those options are. But at this stage, everything's just so open-ended, and we might have to have a PGA which comes with a whole bespoke programme. We might not, so we'll be trying to kind of plan and as we get closer, trying to make a bit of a more definite decision towards the end of the season.
Okay, thank you. This one is for Jay. As a coaching team, when do you start planning for next season? Or are you always planning for different scenarios from the start of the season?
I think you're always planning for different scenarios. We have a head of recruitment, Grace, who is now the window's shut. She'll be looking at different options for both leagues. We've set her with a task, and we've got to be realistic with the position we're in. For us as a coaching team, I think from on pitch, our focus is the next game. Our focus is the next cycle of games that we have coming up. I personally haven't thought that far ahead yet, given obviously, like I said, Grace has got the task, and I know there's going to be ongoing discussions from now to the end of the season when we're getting closer. But all of our energy, all of our effort, all of our time right now is going into Sunderland in the FA Cup this weekend, as it was for London City, and then it will go into Chaplen next weekend. And we are literally, I know it's that old cliche of one game at a time, but genuinely in that office it is one game at a time. The next game, where can we get points from? Because that's obviously what we're requiring right now.
Thank you. That's the pre-prepared questions. Now open up to the floor. Could you please put your hand up, and Ian will come to you as soon as you can. Got a question at the back? A little bit faster, please, Ian.
Sorry, I hate microphones. So last season we had a lot of children coming in from local squads to support the team, and obviously this season, I mean, yesterday there was one child. Is there any likelihood that we're going to get more children coming to support the team like we did last season?
When we say last season, are we talking like flag wavers and mascots and stuff? Okay, so this year the decision was made to commercialise those packages and to make them a part of the revenue stream. So it's obviously completely down to whether those packages are purchased on a game-by-game basis. We engage in schools with everything that we do. We obviously send a lot of players and staff down to PITC events with the development teams regularly on girls' programmes in the school holidays. But in terms of this specific match day packages, they're now for a purchase only option.
Following on from that, isn't it a false income stream? Because when we had perhaps 11 of a squad coming along to be the mascots and 10 coming to be flag wavers, each child brought one or two parents with them. And not only that, they enjoyed the game, they enjoyed the atmosphere, and they would come back at future dates and start supporting Pompey Ladies. So I feel we've sort of perhaps missed that opportunity by charging children to come and do it.
Yeah, so we've had those discussions at senior management level. It's not like we don't recognise those things. I think what we're trying to do is create a product with value. And what comes with that is, and what we're really encouraged by the league to do, is to make sure that we're not devaluing a product by giving too much away. So I'm not saying it was the right decision, and we'll always review and learn from stuff year on year, but that's kind of the direction from a marketing and sales point of view that was taken. Look, we'll look back at the end of the year and see whether those decisions were the right ones or not, and review again for next year. We obviously want girls to be involved, different grassroots teams, schools, development centres, all of them. So yeah, it's definitely not something that we won't reflect on, and whether it was the right or wrong decision or not, we'll look back and review that.
Next question.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
My regret this.
Oh dear.
So that's a question for Jay. Did Max consider interviewing you after yesterday's game? Or was he concerned about the number of expletives he'd have to withdraw, so just went straight to Kim?
Two things. So I think now in a professional game, you can't actually do a post-match interview after a red card, which was something I found out. And also for my own benefit, I think it was best for the club as well that Kim took it, given the events of the game yesterday.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't need that.
So we can hear them.
This one's for Jay. Can we have an update on Jazz Younger and Hannah Helpton, please?
Yeah, so both all of our injured players I can do an update with. So obviously Grace McEwen, start with her. She's gone back to Brighton to undergo treatment on an injury sustained at Blackburn. And then the current injured players that we have, Hannah Cohen underwent a keyhole knee surgery, so we're hoping she'll be back in within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Hannah Horton is progressing really well with her shoulder. She's in a kind of a progressive stage of her rehabilitation, and that will hopefully be towards the end of the season. Back in training with her feet, but not with her hands on sign-off, so I think you're looking at another couple of months in regards to Han. And then with the other two, Emily Pittman and Jazz Younger won't feature this season. Jazz is, and them to be fair, in similar kind of stages of their rehabilitation, and more so off pitch, and with the hope that they'll be on pitch in probably 6 to 8 weeks. That's the hope, but with injuries, things can obviously progress, things can take toll and can move back. But they're in great care from the football club this season, with the kind of professional medical care they've got. So yeah, seeing her around on game day is obviously brilliant. The only other one I'd say is Ella Humphrey is now back full training for this week. So we're hoping that she'll be hopefully back within the next 2 to 3 weeks on pitch, ready to play games.
Yeah, right.
At the moment, the Pompey app is focused on the men's team at the moment, but on away games, it'd be good to have commentary of the away games. At the moment, we're relying on fan putting onto groups to say who's scored, who's not scored. At the moment, there's no communication on the Pompey app for games away. So will there be in the future of commentary being put onto the app?
I have to be really honest and say that that's never been on my radar. I don't have a lot to do with the digital side from the club perspective. It's certainly feedback that we can take back to the club. I believe all of our match updates go on Twitter and Instagram, so whether that changes to the app, I honestly have never been involved in those conversations, but if you feedback things that you feel and that you would prefer to have, then we can obviously take that back to the club with with feedback from you guys, that's no issue at all.
I think in a number of ways it is sometimes disappointing to go onto the club's app and not see information about the women's team. So there isn't even a score update, let alone commentary sometimes. So just to get the score from the away game is sometimes difficult. Yes, there are other media applications, and on Facebook, both the women's team and the supporters group through it do a fantastic job of making that information available. It's just disappointing not to see that from, if you like, the official club, because it suggests that, and it's probably not true, but it suggests that the official club doesn't care as much as the team itself and as the supporters do. So it's a little bit difficult to tie the two together sometimes.
Are we talking about the paywall app, or are we just talking about the generic website?
Regular Portsmouth Football Club app is very slow to deliver information about the women's team. And it's just my opinion, but obviously echoes the question that's been asked. It seems very slow.
I think for the men's team, you get a match centre, don't you? So you log in and immediately it's thrown in your face, match centre, buy audio pass and stuff like that. Yeah. But for the women, there's nothing. I think that's what they're referring to. There's nothing. You have to go on Twitter or just follow one of the people who are there on social. So that's what they're saying. But
so from my understanding, we do a match review. So we have like a social media calendar every week, game day +1, this should go on, and we have a infrastructure that we try and stick to game. So I personally don't log onto the website every Monday to check that it's gone on, but as per what is expected of our marketing and media team, my understanding was that after every game there should be a match report on there. Correct me if that's wrong.
Yeah, that does go up.
It does go up.
I'll take the stats off of it. They're actually quicker than they were last year. They do get the match reports up quickly, but I think it's that live match centre. I mean, that's even hard to get. I think we've all found this. So yesterday I was trying to look like on one of the BBC websites for the stats of the game. So I thought, I feel like we're really on top here. I'd love to know possession and shots so I can rant about it on Twitter. But you go on there and there's nothing. There's nothing anywhere. It's just it's a bit of a problem, isn't it? That people in this room, we want that stuff, but obviously it's not available at the moment.
Yeah, if you feed that back to me via email, we can obviously take that back to the club. If there's resource to do it, I'm sure the club would consider any suggestions that are put forward.
If you don't mind, I've got a quick one for Jay. So Jay, we covered this a little bit yesterday, we had a bit of a chat after the game, but I think everyone in this room would be really interested to know this. So if you're talking about Pompey women this season, pre-Sunderland and post-Sunderland, it's like we have a completely different side, a completely different mentality to the side, a whole new stratosphere of belief about the girls, and we are genuinely in every single game since that Sunderland game. What has changed since that Sunderland? Was it purely the fact we got a result and it boosted confidence, or were you doing stuff behind the scenes? What's caused that massive change in the team?
I think there's a mixture of a lot of things. I think the point in itself was obviously the catalyst, and it gave the group of players, it gave the group of staff a belief that we could compete with a team like Sunderland, who are a well-established team at championship level, and it gave them that belief. And I think the shame then was the fact we had the Christmas break. I also think that Christmas break helped, having time off. The players and the staff had a 9-day period, of which we were obviously doing things away, but that mental break, I think, is kind of underestimated in football, when we've gone from 1 year of the highs of winning every game to this year losing games. I think away from the pitch, from a nutrition point of view, Brooke and Eric sorting out food for we've had food since the start of the season, but now we're able to bring in another chef, and therefore the quality of food, and I know that sounds, but in terms of nutritious food for the players every single day now from a professional point of view is a huge boost for the players. And then I think also from the staff, we had a massive review, and we went back to doing what we were doing. We have, as people have seen, and people might have mentioned, we've played a 4-3-3, a 4-2-3-1, a 3-5-2, a 5-3-2. We've tried everything. We've sat back against teams to hit on a counter-attack that hasn't worked. We tried to play possession-based football against quality opposition that have pressed us, and we've reviewed what we feel we're best at doing, which is playing quick, direct football to our top-line players, and pressing and being aggressive against the ball. And I think we've gone back to that as well. So I think there's been a number of things. Tactically, we kind of changed a little bit of our tactical periodisation, without going into too much detail of, we used to do an intensive, extensive, now we're doing an overload, underload. So in terms of our periodisation of our physical loading out on pitch, and also it's taken these athletes 6 months to adapt to what the game demands. You don't build power and strength overnight, it takes months and months. And these players are now slowly adapting, as you saw yesterday. What was it? I missed it, but up until the 90th minute, we're pressing high against London City Lionesses and we're being aggressive and we're looking fit on the pitch, and that's taken a lot of time, a lot of work ethic from the players, the staff. And there's a genuine belief, there's a belief in and amongst the group that they are now individually and collectively good enough to be here. And then from that, obviously the win at Blackburn, and then to go into the last 3 games, coming away from Birmingham, Newcastle and London City, there's a real disappointment in and amongst the group that we haven't got, yesterday haven't got 3, never mind 1 point. So yeah, there's a real belief now, we've got to take that into the remaining games, but lots have gone on behind the scenes and on pitch, and all credit to everyone for that.
Is there a question on the far side?
Yeah, quick question about coaches to away games, and again, please do not think for a moment this is a complaint to anybody in this room, because it's not. At the beginning of the season, we committed to sending a coach to away games. There is now a commercial viability threshold applied to those, and for perfectly understandable reasons. But realistically, do we think, therefore, it's unlikely now that we'll be sending coaches to away games for the remainder of the season? I'm thinking that a number of times I've booked and got a refund, and I'm not sure we're ever close to getting that threshold. So I'm just curious to know whether we should be thinking about different transport arrangements for away games, or is it realistic to think that we will be taking coaches to away games? And again, please, the people in this room are die-hard supporters, and the club itself does a wonderful job. So this is not a complaint of anybody. It's a genuine question about the best way to get to away games.
It's not the area that I work specifically on. My understanding is that we review it on a away game. It's up to you if you want to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I made a commitment at the beginning of the season to try and run a coach to every game. I got a banding from Luckett's where we could run coaches as long as we had 19 people. They would run a minibus, and then we could do a 35-seater coach or a 50-seater coach. Unfortunately, the numbers were single figures, not double figures even, so we couldn't get up to that sort of threshold, anywhere near that threshold. And obviously we couldn't run it at losses. So we had to make a decision to withdraw it. And that was disappointing. I'm very disappointed by that. If we could get the sort of numbers up we need, then obviously I would relook at it, of course I would. But certainly on the ones that we tried, I think that, I can't remember what Chaplen, we did one to Chaplen, didn't we? But the next 2 or 3, we didn't even hit double figures on. Sorry.
No, I'm not understanding. Again, no criticism, and it's just one of those things. But it just helps us plan, because we want to go to the away games if we possibly can. We want to be there.
Yeah, so I can expand on it a little bit, because I'm the one who goes back and forth with Susie and Jack, who does media. So I can expand on it a little bit. So the club are really good. And I'm genuinely saying that. I'm not just saying it because the officials are here. They generally really want to do the coaches, but of course it's a business, as he said, and you put the question very respectfully. And out of all the issues I've communicated with the club, that is by probably 10 times the amount of emails over any other subject I talk about the club with is away travel. So what we've agreed, like Brooke said, is that we're taking on a match-by-match basis. They email us, and we've just talked about literally the Southampton game, which I'll tell you in a minute. They give us different bus sizes and then different minimum bookings, but of course the smaller the bus, the more it costs. So we always have this really difficult decision about which bus size do we say we want compared to the costings. We've tried to make that the right decision, but still, like, it's not as if we're getting 80% to the target. I mean, some of the games we've had 0 bookings, and I think some of that is you don't have the faith that it's going to go ahead, so you don't book. Like, that's understandable. And some of it is just like you're not willing to pay that amount of money. So the like Newcastle game was ludicrously expensive. No one's going to pay that. The Southampton game is the bus we've got. We need 40 bookings at £15 per person. So again, 40 is quite a lot, but the security of being safely taken there and back is quite a good one. I mean, I'm even considering booking the 4 of us on it, purely for the fact I don't want to walk around Southampton in Portsmouth shirts back to the car with children, so we might even go on the coach as well. So hopefully, maybe we can get 40 to there. And it's also...
live yet?
Sorry? No, there's an issue with the website, yeah. So we have reported that should be live in the next couple of days. So it's because they wanted us to commit to which bus we wanted. So yeah, apologies, I got peaked a bit too soon with the old the link sending out. But yeah, we're working on that sort of thing, and away allocations as well. We had a lot of you feedback about the Southampton game last year. The conduct of some of their supporters was disgusting last year. As soon as we sat down, they swarmed over to us and started abusing. The Minty Army took their fair share of abuse. They gave it back, so they were fine. But you know, Susie and I had our children with us, and to see this group of middle-aged men literally get off their seats at the far side, walk all the way down to abuse us, is just, I just don't need that in an away game, and the stewards were not interested at all. So,
are they actually not going to sell the end of the aisles to Southampton fans like they did last year?
Yeah, so this we don't know.
I don't know if it's like last year.
So a complaint went into Southampton, and one of their big bosses replied to Abby Richardson, who's our vice chair, not here tonight, but he replied with an apology, apologising, saying they should have done better. It appears that they've given us our own away section now. What that will look like, we don't know. Are they going to have actually netting or a way of dividing it? I hope so, but I don't know. Otherwise it's pointless, isn't it? So yeah, that's what we're doing. We'll carry on working with the coaches. I don't know if we're going to get enough. I'll say we're not even close at the moment to getting coaches, but we will carry on. I say Jack, who is a dedicated media person, he's really, really good. He's really communicative, comes back to my emails really quickly, so we'll carry on working with the club and do the best we can to try to make it accessible.
Thank you.
Okay, any... Chris?
I don't know if this is the right question to ask at this forum, but I've been asked to ask this question. But there's a lack of lights, lack of hot water, lack of cleanliness in the toilets at Wesley Park. for everybody, really. Is there anything that can be done to take that back to haven't?
Thanks for that, Terry, much appreciated. It is an important part. We are trying to lift standards, and I would definitely take that back to Admiral Waterville and tell them that was brought up at this meeting tonight, and ask them to try and improve on what they do. I try and encourage them to do that in the nicest way, because obviously you have to work with Havant on a match day. But I will take that back and I will push it. I just wanted to say, I was going to ask the panel actually to try and explain jump from last season to this season, from amateur to professional, semi-amateur, semi-professional to professional. I'd love Brooke and Jay to try and explain in men's terms what the difference is. I mean, personally, I think the difference is trying to jump a League One men's club into the Premier League. That's what it's been like. The intense work that everybody's having to do just to comply with the standards that are required in the Barclays championship is astronomical. And I take my hat off to the guys here and all our players who are working tirelessly to make that happen. And I'm sure that we've got 7 league games left, and I say we've got 7 league games left. Of course, we've got 4 in the FA Cup as well. We've got to remember.
You've got to be joking.
And I know the girls are going to give everything, and the backroom staff are giving everything, working their socks off to make that happen. I do apologise about some of the shortcomings that we've got, because there's so much going on to just meet the standards of the Barclays Championship, and other things have been not addressed, i.e. like having water-level cleanliness is something that we should be able to do a lot better on, and one or two of the other ideas that's come up today we're going to be working on as well. So thanks everybody.
Yeah, that's just reminded me of a question someone asked on the way in that they didn't want to speak properly, that's fine. So basically what they asked was, and this is a common theme actually on a match day, so next year if the worst does happen and we go down, has a decision been made as to whether the team will stay full time? So that's the first part of the question. And the second part of, we're on a brilliant cup run and the FA Cup money is a lot better than it has been in previous years. If we manage to get through another couple of rounds, would the money generated affect whether we can stay full time or not? So it's probably to Brooke.
Yeah, so in the next couple of months, myself, Andy Cullen and Eric will probably sit down and look at what the costs are next year, if we're in Tier 2, if we're in Tier 3. Obviously in Tier 2 we have our hands tied, we have to be full time, so we know what that looks like. Tier 3 we have a lot more leeway where we're not necessarily tied to a licence of minimum requirements, so it will come down to cost and how we can make that work. Obviously from an opinion point of view, I think if you look at how a lot of the other clubs in Tier 3 who have come up to Tier 2 have operated, they've tried to get as close to a Tier 2 operational package in Tier 3 so that when they make that jump they're almost ready to go, as opposed to going back down to what a Tier 3 package looks like and then trying in the summer between your promotion into the next league, trying to make this huge jump of a whole new MDT team, players that obviously are a different calibre from Tier 3 to Tier 2. So I think from a personal point of view, when I sit down with the guys and give my own opinion, having been across all the leagues, I think we have to try to stay at a certain level so that if we do go down and then have to consider what it looks like coming back up, we're in a much better place to make smaller changes as opposed to having to do like a really big jump. But like I said, it's not my money. I will propose different plans and different ideas to the club, and then we'll probably have to sit down and work through those with the owner, with the board, and see what they look like.
So, towards Jay, what's camp been like in terms of staff, players after a difficult first half of the season, like mentally? So it's quite a challenge coming across, sort of not losing every week but having good performances but just not getting rubbed green.
Off the back of yesterday, extremely positive but extremely frustrated at the same time. I think Kim delivered a huddle on pitch, and it was the opinion of every player and staff member that there was a belief. I think if you give it context, the striker who scored past us cost 6 figures. The midfielder won the World Cup for Japan in 2011. Like, the quality we're coming up against now, and you talk, Eric speaks about the jump, is astronomical, probably bigger than any of us expected, including myself. I've watched a lot of the games over the off-season, and obviously you can never really pick what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like from the sideline, but I think we've grown into, and we're feeling that growth now. Like you said, we're getting closer and closer game on game, but now the kind of frustration piece there is that we're not picking up the points. So we see Sheffield United picking up another point, Blackburn have picked up 3 against Southampton a few months back, and that's what we've got to do, because then it starts all this talk about what's going to happen next season. We're going to be full-time, we're going to be part-time, what division we're going to be in. But I'd say that the group's really focused. I think that the players we were able to bring in January, and I highlight that, the fact we were able to bring in players, I think further cements where the owners' faith lies and what they want from this season, which is us to stay up. Those players, Jazz Ball, Liv Bramley, Emma Thompson, they have pedigree and experience at this level, and in Jazz Ball's case, higher, so they brought in experience for us on pitch, which I think has enabled us kind of like found this newfound optimism and newfound focus. So in amongst the staff and the players, everyone's working as hard as they possibly can. But the biggest thing we have as a group is belief. We have a spirit. Hopefully everyone saw that on pitch yesterday, and I firmly believe if we continue to play like that, we will pick up points. We just need to ensure that we get enough to stay in the league.
1 sec, Stephen, just got one over me. Then I'll come to you.
Quick question for Molly. Do you find you have certain parameters you have to develop your team to, or do you have sort of freedom to develop your players however you want, whatever style you want?
I think this season we started off very similar. I think the first team, and then because they chopped and changed, we kind of went our own way with certain players that we've got and fitted in to how we've got. Yeah, so we've got a lot of players who probably don't fit the same system as the first team will play, so we've definitely gone for more our own route with it, and it seems to be working. We're still obviously learning because a lot of them are 16, 17-year-olds, so they're having to learn different roles and responsibilities throughout, whether that's in a 4-3-3 or a back three as well, which we've tried a couple of times, but it's good for their development as well, being able to do different ones at the same time.
As a quick question, is about the home matches. I was just wondering if, I know we've got a game against Sunderland coming up at Fratton Park, I think. We played Southampton at Fratton Park. I was just wondering if there was any discussions about whether probably women can play more games here in Portsmouth. It's good facilities at Haven, and they've got a good ground there, and pitch is brilliant. But I know there was some discussions towards the end of last season about whether you could actually have a ground in Portsmouth to play their home games. I was just wondering if there's any developments on that.
Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but the club's ambition is for the women's team to be here. That's the long-term aim. I think one of the barriers to that right now is that the pitch here probably can't withstand 2 competitive programmes on it. So in order for that to happen, there will probably have to be money invested into relaying the pitch. Not just, it obviously gets relayed every summer, but the real infrastructure underneath it and how it's built. So that is definitely something that we as a club want and is something for the future. I think there just needs to be a few changes here to be able to accommodate that.
Jay, I'm going to ask you on. So this is a question that a lot of people talk about, but they're probably not going to have the fun to ask. So, and I appreciate appreciate the fact Jay's got to answer this in a professional manner. So, Jay, Nicole Barrett is an extremely popular member of the Portsmouth family after her performances last year. She's found her place under jeopardy this year. She hasn't had a lot of game time and she's gone on loan to Oxford. And I know you won't be able to go into a lot of detail, we would expect you to, but could you just give us a rough idea of why she hasn't featured this year, and does she have a future at the club?
Yeah, no, listen, Nicole Barrett's a quality human being, real good player for us. I know she was one of the fans' favourite last season. She played with flair, creativity, great ball carrier, great cross of the ball, scored some memorable goals. Ipswich away, I think the free kick against Billericay, which rivaled the men's goal of the season. And she was a specific profile of player, kind of like a winger that played as a fullback. So then enable our winger to come inside the pitch at the time, Beth Lumsden, and we used her as that. This league now demands more. This league we've not been able to get our fullbacks as high up the pitch. So instead of having a fullback that can get 10 crosses in a game, can beat or can win 1v1 duels, we now need fullbacks that are a different profile to Nick Barrett, more defensively minded. I think we only have to look at Jazz Ball's introduction into the team. She's got a 78% 1v1 win capacity aerial duels and defensive duels have been sky high. So unfortunately, when it comes to football, and I know Will's just asked the question there around player profiling, specific players, whether it comes from a physical capacity, which I know we had to look through all the objective data over the off-season and which players we're going to transition into and be given an opportunity, and Nicole Barrett rightfully deserved an opportunity to compete at this level. And then we got to look at the profiling, and Nick Barrett's a 27-year-old player, someone we found from Maidenhead United in Tier 4 around 3 years ago. And now she wants to be playing football, and we had an honest conversation of how it would look from now to the end of the season. She's found a loan move to Oxford United, where I believe she'll get game time. I know she came on against Chaplen yesterday in a 2-1 win, so we're keeping an eye on her. We're constantly communicating with her, and we'll see when it comes to the end of the season, depending on how good she has to the end of the season with Oxford and where we lie. But Nicole Barrett will always be a fan's favourite. She'll always be. She went down in history winning the league with us, so there's a lot of affirmation there from everyone. But obviously right now we've got to look at a certain profile, and if a player doesn't want to be at the club, they need to get game time. We won't stand in their way, and that was the same with Nicole Barrett. We respect that.
And Oxford are a part-time setup, we're a full-time. Will she carry on training with us to make that up, or is she purely gone to Oxford full-time for the rest of the season?
Yeah, no, she's purely gone to Oxford now for the rest of the season. Her circumstances are slightly different. For those of you who don't know, Nick runs a fantastic company with young kids, and they go around to different academies from Fulham to Chelsea, and she's got her own kind of setup on the side, so that will now take precedent and allow her to focus on that, as well as training with Oxford. I believe they train 2 if not 3 nights a week, so she's gone back into that and having to balance her work to life, but also now being a professional football club in terms of the legalities of it. Once we loan the player up, she's there, but we'll have constant updates from her. No, Grace, and we'll be going to watch an Oxford game from now to the end of the season, or a couple, just to keep an eye on her as well and to check she's doing well.
I did ask Ian earlier in the season. My company that I work for has sponsored a member of the men's team, and we're a majority female company. So I have sort of trying to get them to lean towards also sponsoring a member of the female team. But it's very difficult on the website, Portsmouth website, to find out which players are still requiring sponsorship. None of the loan players are on there. So does anybody have any idea how we would go about doing that? Who's available for sponsorship at the moment? Because it's just not out there. I can't find it out.
If you start with the match day programme, I looked on there, but not everybody was on that. I haven't bought one this week, but I've got one in there.
I can give you Mark Dodge's email. Yeah, I'll let you have Mark. I'll give you Mark Dodge's email, but that's the best one to contact.
But we'll definitely take the feedback that the website's not up to date and that you can't see that
We
information on there.
highlighted that last year as well. There was no up-to-date pictures. The girls, part of our sponsor package is that our details are on there as well. And even that is quite, they haven't sort of picked up from last year either on that.
Okay, I'll take that back and note it with the marketing team, digital team.
Further questions?
Sorry,
Yeah.
going back to your pitch question. Going back to your pitch question, the long-term aim obviously is to bring the girls to Fratton Park. 2 reasons for this. For the men's point of view, when the pitch is reloaded, they will bring it up to Premier League standard, which obviously it isn't at the moment, so when they get back in the Premier League, it'll be of a standard. And secondly, the WSL has to be played on grass, it can't be played on 3G, so we wouldn't be able to play it up in Waterlooville. So that's why we'd be moving to Fratton Park.
On my way. Doing that deliberately, keep you fit, yeah. 1 into the other, it's fine. I need the exercise.
Just a question about the link between the 23s and the first team. Is anybody from the first team come and have a watch the 23s ever to see how they progress as players?
I've been down to watch. Yeah, I try, obviously I have a very full schedule trying to run the women's first team from an operational point of view, but I've been down to watch the 23s, I've been down to watch the 16s, the 14s and the 12s, down at the John Jenkins when I'm able to. Obviously I'm not free every Saturday, Sunday to do so, but I definitely keep an eye on talent, and I also feed back to Grace, who's our recruitment analyst, just when I do see young players that are showing potential. It's not easy with the schedule that we've got to be there all the time. Obviously our fixture schedule is really heavy, but it's a huge part of the club growing, and we need to make sure that our pathway represents our first team and also starts to produce talent there. So it's obviously a huge piece of work to link the two together when at the moment the first team isn't connected really in any way with the younger age groups because it's run by the community trust. But that's obviously going to potentially change this year with the licence requirements and the academy expectations that come with being in Tier 2. So regardless of where we end up this year, there's a really big piece of work that's needed to be done to link, I'm talking right down to 12, so obviously the 23s is part of that, all that way down, so that we can start to produce talent from within.
Yeah, no, from a coach's point of view, two things I'll say. Firstly, Grace, our head of recruitment, has been to a number of games. I haven't, and that's not good enough, and I'll be honest with you. I'll be open. I am there Wednesday night because I can get to a Wednesday night game, I can get to a Tuesday night game. I think if I went to Friday night or went to training Friday night, I'll be honest, I think I wouldn't have a wife and kids. I'm just being honest, I think we play on the same day, so it doesn't help playing Sunday to Sunday, that doesn't help at all. And I'm in constant communication with Molly and obviously wishing her well and getting links there. Would I like the links to be better and stronger? 100%, of course I wouldn't. I've got to take accountability for that, being the head coach of the first team, that I need to be down there more often as much as I can. And like I said, because there's now a game against Portchester on Wednesday, and I'm plugging that, I will be going down to have a watch because I think it'll be great to see. All of my focus from the first 6 months has been solely on that first team. I think we have players, and she was going to be here tonight, Sophie Quirk, that absolutely tore Tier 3 apart, and for the first 6 months struggled at Tier 2 and has adapted that way. So my ex been on the first team of trying to develop the players that we had winning the league last year, and now I think will there be opportunities from now till the end of the season potentially. I've never closed that door, but for that to happen I need to open at my end, and hopefully I can start to do that from Wednesday, and I'll continue to be in constant communication with Molly, and that is definitely something that's a priority of mine.
I just feel like as a parent of the under 23s, the under 23s have been forgotten about. As players, we were told things were going to happen and put in place, and that's why most were signed. And then it just got totally wiped out before point. No coaches. We weren't allowed to go up to the 23. We weren't allowed to train the first team. We got told that there would be that development pathway, and then we got told no, it's not going to happen. And I feel some of the girls felt a bit, decisions. We had to make a decision. And then we made that decision by what you told us.
I don't know.
Is that aimed at me or Jay?
No, just what is?
Thank you, Brooke. So is that something that the club are looking to improve? And
I think what was difficult, obviously I came in to the 23s after all of these conversations had taken place, so I obviously went down, I watched the 23s, I spent a lot of time with Molly and the staff looking at the programme, what it looked like, what the girls were doing within the programme. There's a lot of girls that are going to college and playing education, football, and then obviously coming over and wanting to be part of a development team that's linked with a women's championship club. So I can't speak on behalf of promises that were made. I'm not sure of what they were because I wasn't in post when that happened. But again, from our perspective, I've come in and had a huge project with the first team that we've had to get off the floor. Eric's made it quite clear that that was a huge piece of work, not just for me, but other people at the club, the staff included. Creating a full-time programme is not easy, and it's definitely not easy when you've got a whole staff group that's new to. So for that we can only apologise that that's had to take precedent this season. As for promises that were made, I really can't speak on behalf of anyone else because I don't actually know what they were. But it has to be a long-term project when we look at the pathway. It wouldn't have been fixed in a season because currently we don't even run our own pathway here. The Pompey and the community obviously run the ETC, they then run the 13s, the 14s, the 15s, the 16s and the education programme. So going forward we obviously want to tie that all in and that be an elite pathway where we truly believe we can develop talent that will make it through to our first team. But that's not going to happen overnight. So long term, it's absolutely on our radar. Maybe this year that got missed, and for that, and anything that was promised that hasn't been delivered, I can only apologise.
Can I just ask a question about the first team? And we're over halfway through the season now, and I think for those of us who've been to watch quite a lot of games in person, we're trying to work out, especially pre-Sunderland, let's say, when we didn't win any games and we're really struggling. And as fans, we're sort of looking at saying, okay, so what do other teams have that we don't? Why are we struggling? You look at London City game, we weren't even in the game at their place, really. What is, for you, having done half a season there now, what is the biggest difference between Tier 3 and Tier 2? Is it the pure athleticism of the players who've perhaps been professional since they were the kids, they've been in academies right through, and you're dealing with people who've had jobs and then become professionals? Or is it a more tactical depth, or is it just more skillful players, or perhaps a mix of all of it? What's the biggest difference between Tier 3 and 2 football?
I think the biggest thing is the athleticism, if I'm being honest. I think where last season we were training 6 hours a week, so we do 2 hours on a Tuesday night, 2 hours on a Wednesday night, 2 hours on a Friday, and one of those hours was in the gym, down at the men's training ground in the porter cabins. And then this year we're now training 6 hours a day, 4 times a week, with more exposure to the physical aspect of preparation, specific gym programs, on pitch, in terms of how we want certain physical outputs on pitch. And it's going to take, from a training adaptation, it takes time for players to build muscle, to build strength, to build power. Some of the players you're going to have to see, like Jazz Bull, for example, who's been in that environment at Bristol City and has played or featured in games at the Super League. She's making underlapping and overlapping runs in the 87th minute, being able to support play. And I think that highlights the growth of some of the players that were here last season with part-time jobs, which again is a huge difference, being able to focus solely on football and not have a day job or a nighttime job and then come to training and have to balance the two. So I think the athleticism was the eye-opener. I think that first game of the season against Chaplen, when we were 3-0 down after 15 minutes, even I was on the sideline like, wow, there's a huge difference here. And it's not going to take, as Brooke alluded to, off the pitch, on the pitch. It's never going to be an overnight job. It's just a case of how do we find a way and find our feet to be able to compete with these teams. But also I'd say the other difference is the goalposts are constantly moving out in the levels. You only have to look at the money that Newcastle have spent in the summer, or in January, sorry, and the players at London City Lionesses, and not brought the ones that they left behind, Aslani, Mayong, and some quality players. This is the level we're at now with quality players, and rightfully so. So it's just taken a lot of time to adapt to that speed of the game, speed of the thought, speed of decision making.
Okay, does anyone have any final questions before we wrap up the Q&A? Got time for another one? No? Okay, I think we'll wrap up the Q&A there. So we've got the facility here till 5:30, so you've got time to do some networking, and obviously you can come and speak to the panel if you want to have a chat with them for a little bit before we wrap it up. But from our point of view, just thank you so much for coming along. It means so much to see you all here. Like I said before, we weren't really sure how many people would come tonight. It's been absolutely blown away by how many tables, off pretty much every table straw, isn't it? So that's really heartwarming for us, and thank you so much for taking your time to come along, and thank you to the panel for sitting and answering all the questions. So if we just give them a quick round of applause.